Hello. Welcome to First Geek 411's book club. Tonight we will be discussing Secret Identity by Alex Segura. Hey. Before we get started, you can find us on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as One Geek 411. Come join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com for all of your chatting needs. Check out our show notes at our website, onegeek411.com. Watch live on our Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time, and find all our videos over on YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our sweet merch at our Redbubble store. I'm Shanine, and with me, I have Emma
Hi. Happy to be here.
and Cameron. All right, let's get into it. Oh, yes, and also, last year we had graphic novel summer. This year we're having superhero summer.
Yay.
And also
Eh,
weirdly, conveniently picked out some superhero novels for both months as well. It worked out.
Yay.
All right. So, Secret Identity. Uh Carmen Valdez is an assistant at Triumph Comics in 1975 when the comic industry is struggling, but she has aspirations to be a comic book writer. She thinks she gets her chance when a coworker approaches her with a ghostwriting opportunity, but days later her scripts are handed in without her name on them, and her partner is found murdered in his apartment. As she works to solve the mystery of her partner's death, she uncovers twisted and sinister secrets from another publishing company with curious connections to the case. Carmen also must confront her past, a failed romantic relationship, and strained relationships with her parents, and come to terms with her place in the writing world and life. All right. First impressions of Secret Identity.
It wasn't life-changing, but it was an entertaining summer beach read.
I like that a lot. Yeah, for me, I enjoyed it. It's not something that I think I will ever think about, but it was a fun read. I enjoyed getting through it.
Um, yeah, I was at home sick for 2 days and just read the book straight through, and I never felt like I didn't want to be reading it, but it it was fine. It was a fine book. All right.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part?
The very last part where she's like sitting in the dark in the office waiting to pull the so I bet you're wondering why I called you here today. Line out on everyone.
For me, I really enjoyed Chaos Carmen, and I liked that we kind of got to see her just like escalate into more and more like shenanigans, more and more trouble as we got going. And especially like that last third of the book when I feel like her life kind of comes off the rails. Um, and that's as like the mysteries picking more up and we're getting a bit more into it. I just like how she's like ready to burn everything to the ground. And yeah, I was there for it.
All right, and we'll get to my favorite things later. Um, I will start with my least favorite part being that it was not that great of a mystery, in my opinion. Um, there wasn't, there just wasn't really a lot of red herrings to follow. There wasn't, I don't know, really that many clues to pick up on, maybe. And then the big reveal was not very epic. It was kind of just expected by the time we got there. So,
And it didn't in the grand scheme of things really feel like a mystery book. It just felt like, okay, someone died, and as is kind of mentioned in a before a redo, it's it, Carmen was spent far too much time contemplating her own problems, or not necessarily that her problems were a bad thing. They were legitimate, but like she, given that her problems were intertwined with the fact that someone died, someone very much related to her problems, like it was just like, okay, they're both problems that are connected, and someone died. Investigate. You may be in trouble here.
Should you investigate? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about that. For me, my least favorite part is just how we constantly reiterate that Carmen has such mixed feelings about what happened. Like, I get it from like human beings, we don't resolve an issue right away. Like it takes time obviously to get through something, and like the amount of like baggage and like stuff that she would have after like literally discovering like this friend's dead body. Friend kind of being a loose term, but like the amount of like again like trauma she would have makes sense, but man, I just feel like it's reiterated to us on every single page that hey, she wrote part of this, what's his face stole it, turned it in, said he'd help her get credit, didn't, and then he died, but now he's dead, so she feels bad because he did kind of help, but really she did most of the work.
He still technically
Yeah,
steal her work.
I just feel like there was so much there that just like every time you would kind of get into that rhythm of those like 4 or 5 feelings that she was going through in connection with that. And it's like, yep, here they are again. The exact same order, the exact same things. And just like, oh, we just needed an extra paragraph on this page kind of thing.
Again.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Ready Player 1 and 2, where
Don't say that.
he in a slightly better done way, like where he like re-explains things that don't need to be re-explained, but in the same sense that it just like rehashes her emotions over and over again, and it's like, yeah, okay, we get it. What is she doing about it? Sitting there and moping, or going out on a date with someone and moping.
All right. And speaking of Carmen, what are your thoughts on her as the protagonist?
Could have done with more chaos, Carmen.
Mm-hmm.
I also enjoyed Chaos Carmen and could have done with more of that energy throughout the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it took Carmen a while to grow on me, and I think by the time we get to the end, a lot of her decision making makes a lot more sense. It just took her a while to get there. So like, like the whole premise of like I can't reveal anything to the police officer who's investigating this, and like I'm like implicating myself. It's like, oh man, like you could just actually turn over this evidence to the police, but then like by the end, like she's kind of a good investigator, and like it kind of works out. Like,
Yeah.
would it have been better to bring in the armed forces to capture this person instead of you trying to do it yourself?
Yeah.
Yes. But like,
In the grand scheme of things.
yeah, she did figure it out on her own. So like, on her own, in air quotes, but like,
Yeah.
I did like the chaos of that.
Yep.
If you're going to commit crimes, at least commit them to catch a murderer and then
Yeah.
get them caught.
Commit them for the sake of good.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I agree. It took a little while for Carmen to grow on me. She was, I don't know, maybe kind of generic in the beginning, and also a little annoyingly dumb with the whole
Yes.
I'm not going to tell the police because they'll think it's me. And I'm like,
Honey,
But
The police are smarter than that. Come on. You're a white female in 1975. Like, the last person they're
I
going
don't
to
think she
Cuban?
was
implicate
white.
is
She's
you.
Cuban. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, well, Cuban. The last person they're going to implicate is you in that scenario, as long as you're honest.
Yeah, she definitely came across as much more suspicious, not telling them
Yep.
what she knew. But I guess we wouldn't have had the book if she just
Yeah, she just
let the police solve the
yeah.
murder.
It really reminds me of have you ever watched like this pitch meetings? Have you ever watched those? And it's like, why do we need that? Why is the character doing that? That seems dumb because we
Oh,
need
I
a
feel like
story.
you've said those before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, why is this character making this awful decision so the plot can happen? Like,
Yeah.
is it a good decision? No, but
No.
like we need plot to occur. Like, here we are.
Yeah. All right. Were there any other standout characters for you?
I kind of wanted more of Molly, the roommate.
Yeah.
Like, Molly felt like a pretty unique character in the sense that, like, she's a striving musician in New York, which kind of runs a parallel with Carmen's striving comic book writer in New York, but in a way that, like, Molly was kind of a sounding board for Carmen in the, bits and pieces here and there that, like, she was in. But I kind of wanted more of that dynamic of having a second outside opinion for Carmen to bounce off of throughout the book, because that would have added, if they were going to carry on with the, like, Carmen moping about her scenario, like, at least having a second outside opinion to spice it up a bit. And Molly was very interesting. So,
Yeah, definitely agree. I did like Detective Hudson as well. I really think that those are pretty much. Oh, and Doug, the artist guy.
the artist,
I mean, he doesn't really
yeah.
do much, so like, I mean, he's interested in the sense that like apparently he's this good artist, but like, it really feels like Molly is like the only one that like, I think was really like super interesting for all the points Emma said.
Yeah. I liked the artist as well. I don't know. I found him to be intriguing.
Yeah.
Just an old jaded comic book artist.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What did you think of the comic book excerpts throughout?
I thought they were super cool. I loved these.
Yeah, I liked them. They were a lot of fun. I felt like they could have changed them up a little bit to reflect or like change them a bit more to reflect the in-story, like, shift from, like, writer and artist to, like, good writer and artist to terrible writer and artist. They did it a little bit, but it wasn't like you had to actually look for it. But they could have made it a bit more noticeable as a shift, but I really liked it as an in-book, like, snapshot of the thing that they were talking about so much.
Yeah. Like I said, I really like them. I like that they do like very much mirror like Carmen, which like for the first like 6 issues, really makes sense because it's basically the story about her life reflected in this character that she's been working on for a bunch of years. So I really liked that, and I liked from like a meta standpoint of like, well, obviously it would tie in with her life because it's about her life experiences. And so I thought that was super cool. I definitely wish they would have given us honestly more. Like this is something that like I could really have gone for like on basically every chapter having some sort of comic book like thing at the beginning, even if they are less direct tie-ins, because like obviously that's a lot to have a direct tie-in to every single thing that would make sense in the narrative of the comics. But I would really have loved it if like you could, after finishing the book, go through and actually read them in order and it's a cohesive story. I think that would have been really cool.
Oh yeah, like they all are like one panel after another
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So like instead of it being like every 5 chapters, but it's very directly involved in the story, actually
Mm-hmm.
have it be so you actually have even just like one page or something, or one set of panels for every chapter, and that you could actually read through.
Mm-hmm.
Even if
Mm-hmm.
it does still skip, so like you could have issue 1, then issue 3, then issue like stuff like that. But it would be really cool if you could actually read them as a comic.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting to include that, and yeah, how it did tie in with the rest of the story as well. And I feel like that could have felt very heavy-handed, but I actually liked the way that
Mm-hmm.
it like wove back and forth between the stories. So it worked, and I liked it. All right. Did you solve the mystery, and how long did it take you?
Like, was it a mystery? Like in the sense
Yeah.
of like, were there clues? Like I feel like, and maybe the answer to this question is not until like right before, but like I feel like up until like 2 chapters before the reveal, it could like literally have been anyone else in the story also.
Yeah.
Like it like, I mean, with some exceptions, but like it would like, it could have been Carlisle, it could have been someone else that like is ghost writing, it could like, there were a handful of other people. I think it would have all made sense for it to be. And like I don't necessarily feel like they were clues directly that it was Stevenson. Like he's involved, but like, and then it's just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh well, it's definitely him at this point. Like,
Yeah. Kind of like I've said already, it didn't really feel like a mystery book up until the last third when Carmen really starts to investigate. Because that's really when you get, like Cameron was saying, clues or whatever. Like, really up until that point, it was like, it's a couple of, one person died, a couple other people have been attacked. Like, something's going on, but you're not really doing much about it. Like, but at that point, clearly Stevenson was sketchy dude. The other, his whatever the pseudonym was that he had, was also like sketchy dude, obviously. And then Carlisle was a sketchy dude, kind of. So like, there was definitely a list of people who were like plausible, not victims, like plausible suspects. That's the word.
Mark Jensen
But
is the alias.
Mark Jensen, there we go. As well as the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend,
Yeah,
who was just kind of there in the
yeah,
background,
yeah.
really just there, doing not much besides giving Carmen reason to question her life existence.
Yeah, I did think it was her for a while
Yeah.
just because I was
Yeah,
like, they wouldn't just have like this random ex-girlfriend here for no
Surely,
reason.
yeah,
Like,
surprise! It really was just a random ex-girlfriend who
yeah,
was there for no reason.
yeah.
she seemed unhinged enough to have murdered people,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
And I think it made a lot of sense as we find out. I think her name's Catherine. That like she is
Hmm.
this writer. Like it makes sense that she would like have tried to do this under a pseudonym, and like, but like there weren't really clues. It was just like this character seems like they could do this based on the 3 skills that we know about this person. Like,
Hmm.
seems reasonable.
alrighty. I have a quote.
What, you?
Why would you
Surprise!
ever have a quote?
It didn't help that the market was in a tailspin. To many, comics were a way to bide your time before you got to write something real, like TV or a novel or, wow, even a movie.
Gee
It wasn't a
willikers.
career. It wasn't a career unto itself. It was a place where writers honed their craft and left it to the fans, who would write these superhero adventures for free if it brought them closer to the orbit of Stan Lee and his ilk. But today, nothing was selling, morale was low, and Carmen knew it wasn't just a triumph. Comic books weren't sticking. There wasn't a path to victory. Would comics fade like the pulp novels that inspired them? Carmen didn't think so, but she wasn't sure. So, what do you know of comic book history, especially around the 70s?
Little to none.
Yeah, that's. I know that there was a big comic book crash, but honestly, could not have told you if it happened before or after any of this.
Yeah.
Like that's basically basically where I'm at. Like,
Only person I could direct you towards is Stan Lee.
yeah,
Like most other people. Like, you want to know about comic book history? Go look at this guy's career.
Yeah, I do. I remember watching a documentary. I feel like it was on Disney Plus, but maybe it was not. But I don't remember anymore. But it talked a little bit about like Marvel and comics and stuff. And yeah, about that big crash when comics were doing super, super bad and then took off again. Um, I did look up a list of the top 50 comics from 1975. Um, these numbers are based on census through Certified Guarantee Company. So just like how many copies and things are out there in the world that have passed through the CGC.
let me see if I can get this on screen for everybody. Let's see how this is gonna look. Oh, that actually worked right away. Okay.
This is
Nice.
Watch me
seriously
succeed.
impressive.
So scrolling through the list, Marvel is definitely the
I mean, they're 10 or
The
9
big
out of
one.
9 out of the top 10.
Yeah,
And
you know,
DC has
from
one,
DC.
two.
I would like to shout out number 49 from Canadian company Cumley Comics, number 1 Captain Canuck.
DC has 4 spots. One to Commonly Comics, as Shani just pointed out, and the rest literally is just Marvel.
Yeah.
Which like
Marvel was going
Yeah.
strong.
I mean, it does make sense because as you get you get into spots on the list, like even at the top, where 2, 3, and 5 are a 3-episode run of X-Men. Or 3 book run. Like you have 94, 95, 96, all in a run there. And you see that later on as well. I think there's some Spider-Man's 149, 150, 151.
That says a lot about obviously the artists and the authors for those books and the company behind, who are hiring those people. Yes, they're runs and they're likely using the same people to write those series. So they were smart.
Mm-hmm. And it really does emphasize and one of the things that we've talked about for a lot of our MCU stuff has been, what would the MCU have been like if they had the rights to all the characters, and it would have been X-Men and Spider-Man. And this list, even back to the 70s, really just illustrates that point. What is it all about? It's about those sets of characters. There's a reason that they have stood the test of time.
And Spider-Man.
Also, though, shout out to Iron Fist #1 and Inhumans #1, up here putting up a good fight, in 6 and 7. But yeah, I just think it's very interesting that as you scroll, there's not a lot of repeat names on this except for X-Men and Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, there's some Defenders, Kung Fu Fighter,
Invaders, Iron Fist
there is an
#2,
Avengers
super
on
low.
here. Fantastic Four is super low, but so those do show up, but it is primarily Spider-Man and X-Men. Interesting.
Right. And then I also looked up on good old Wikipedia some top comic book related events from 1975. So this includes a lot of like first comics of a series or a certain series ending and um other events and things. And looking through this, I found that the comic art convention in the book that happens at the Hotel Commodore in New York City really did happen. July 3rd to 7th in 1975.
That's pretty cool. I tried to put it on
I
screen. Wikipedia was not cooperating. So we're back to
yeah.
the book cover.
I I don't know. I always forget like how old comic books are. And then I guess I never really thought about comic book conventions being that old either. It was in the novel and I was like, really? A Comic
It seems
Con?
like it seems like a much
Turns out,
more
yes.
recent thing, but
Yeah. Also, shout out to your Captain Canuck, who is on this list of events from 1975. Like they show up in July. So
Good old Captain Canuck.
yeah. Good stuff.
yeah, and I want to shout out. This has this in May. And sorry, I wish I could put this on screen. May, the first Giant Size X-Men #1, which was the #1 comic according to their census stuff, was the introduction of Colossus, Storm, Nightcrawler, and Thunderbird. Like, good job, Giant Size X-Men #1.
Yeah.
Oh, and then X-Men 94 was the first one written by Chris Claremont, who would write this series for the next 17 years. And so, it's the first issue of the title featuring the new X-Men who were written by Chris Claremont. Not necessarily the first one he wrote, but with a new team. Good year for comics.
Yeah.
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 Alrighty, so Carlyle, the owner of Triumph, is known to look down on comics and wants to publish real literature. In his words, the kind of stories that'd last. When planning the links...
There. Sorry. Why are you there then?
Yeah.
Move on.
When planning the Link series, Carmen says, think of Spider-Man, Harvey. Stan and Steve Ditko didn't just want to create another grown, tough, perfect hero man, another steel-jawed Superman. No, they flipped the script. They took the idea of the young sidekick, the teenager, the reader, and made him the hero. They gave him problems we could relate to. I'm not saying we can do something like that, but we sure as hell could try. Otherwise, what's the point?
How amazing is Spider-Man? Like,
So amazing.
like, you know,
I mean,
like this paragraph.
Topic.
Yeah, like, yeah, see previous things. Like, there's a reason that Spider-Man's amazing. Like,
so
First
I
of all,
think,
Carlisle, why are you there? Move on.
right?
You're not gonna get to the place you want to be by the place you're currently in. You should know this. If that's your frame of mind, move on.
So I think the existence of secret identity, as well as the general current pop culture, are testaments to comic books being lasting, impactful stories with relatable heroes. So why do you think comics have so far stood the test of time? And why has the attitude toward comics changed?
I'll say, just based on the limited range of like older comics that I've read, it's because characters started to get a lot more depth. Like, that's like what the big thing that gets people coming back to any story is like, like obviously you can sell some, like obviously like Superman's existed forever and didn't always have like the same level of characterization as he does now. Same with a character like Batman, that like radically changed throughout time. But that ability to adapt characters to the times and to give them like growing and changing backstories, add more and more depth, I think is really what's kept them relevant. And then for a lot of the characters, that core story is just so impactful. The same joke I just made. Like, there's a reason that Spider-Man is so successful. There's a reason that for another generation, Kamala Khan is that character. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much of just being able to see yourself in those characters when they have that depth that you can connect with them, you can grow with them. And I think that that's really like reiterated to like new generations why these characters are so exciting. That was me with the X-Men, like reading X-Men comics and watching the 90s cartoon. It's like, oh, these are kids that were much older than me, relatively speaking, but like we're older than
At
me.
the time.
Yeah. And like, but like they were people that's like, oh, that's so cool. It's like I can see them. I can see that they have depth. They're not cookie cutters. They have stuff going on. So
Totally agree. And even like on top of that, going back to like when like historically comics like back in the 50s 60s 70s in many ways were could do a lot more than television and radio could do in terms of storytelling because of the art form. Like you had the color and the panels, and it's like it was telling the story through the art that the television, like the technology yet wasn't there for making the TV show, or you know color was still becoming a thing that was expensive, and that really helped support what Cameron was talking about with like the characters and sort of adding a sense of excitement to the stories on the page. um, I think they also give a sense of hope that you can't really get anywhere else, and sort of the kind of hope that reflects in a world that is different yet similar to our own.
Yeah, I think it does come down to the relatableness of the heroes and the stories. Something my husband talks about a lot with his favorite superhero, Spider-Man, is that
I hear
like,
good things.
yeah, not only does he have like these exciting adventures defeating villains and things, but he also has real life problems like dealing with school and family and dates and
Jobs and
juggling those things, and like the real things that the people reading these comics are dealing with themselves. Um and yeah, like like you guys have been saying, like the stories and the characters are relatable, something we can see ourselves in, and that makes them more lasting than just some guy in spandex underwear flying around. uh so what do you think this book has to say about identity?
that life was hard for women in 1975. Um, I think the big thing is stand up for yourself, because if you don't, then it's gonna take a long time for you to get to where you want to go.
All right. I do have a couple of quotes. Um, so the first one, she was torn. This was not the person she thought she should be, Carmen had realized. But we drift away from those ideals as time goes on, she'd thought. And the more we drift, the more we rationalize. The more we rationalize, the less of ourselves remains. Um, I don't know, I think identity can often be something that we struggle with, especially when who we think we're supposed to be doesn't line up with where we're at that point. Um, and yeah, does create a lot of personal struggle and turmoil in that sense. Um, and yeah, I think when you're going through a lot of that identity struggle, it can feel like you're losing yourself as well. And yeah, I think it's important to know um, a solid place that you can rest your identity in
Mm-hmm.
instead of there's so much in life that can change. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I really like this idea of like obviously there is the secret identity that's like the mystery, but then there's this idea of like Carmen's secret, like in the sense of like to what Emma was saying of like she's a woman trying to break into this industry that there historically we're not a lot or historically we have not recognized a lot of the women that we're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's that side of it too of like there is this secret that is going on in that sense as well of people that um, their identities are hidden because we have not like really talked about them and given them their due. And so I think there's that. I don't necessarily know if that's what Alex was going for, but that was definitely something that I was reading into it. And so
I think it is. I believe in his acknowledgments at the end, he includes some books referring to women in comics and things like that.
okay.
So,
Well, A+ there, Alex.
all right. And one more quote about identity. Carmen was a writer. She knew what it took, how you recorded all you could and wove it into something new, something special. Carmen allowed herself a moment to admire everything, too, and to think about what had come before. From the wreckage of triumph, she'd carved out a place for herself, as a writer and artist, but most importantly, as a person. I think I think this quote kind of wraps up why the book did end up being a satisfying read for me. It wasn't like, oh, we figured out the very
Mm-hmm.
obvious murderer. It was like, ah, finally, Carmen has realized who she is.
Right, she got it
And
finally.
there we go.
Finally.
And now she's gonna burn this whole thing to the ground.
Arson.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need some light arson. So
Yeah.
referencing
It's
our
not D&D
our D&D game
until you
until you have some
get
light arson.
arrested and have some light arson. Arrest and arson. First 2 A's of D&D.
All right. Did you notice any other themes, biblical or otherwise?
I do think family was a major theme throughout this, like more in the sense of like absence of it. Like as we get later in the book, we kind of find out, or early in the book, we find out that Carmen's essentially dodging all of these calls from her dad and stuff like that. And throughout the book, we find out why that is, and kind of that weight of the her family and lack of them being able to be accepting of her, that has kind of pushed her away. And so I think that that's one of those major like callbacks that we get throughout it. It's like going back to what you had said earlier, Shanine, that idea of like foundation. Like Carmen's very much this person that's thrust into this place where she doesn't have a foundation because she couldn't be with her family because they wouldn't accept her for who she was. Now, would she have still moved to New York? Probably, but like she's there under very different circumstances.
Um, I mean, I don't really know. Um, I think just struggle in general to find your your path that's meant for you is a big thing in this book, and like what is meant for you and where you fit in is a big thing that this book talks about. That's the biggest thing I kind of noticed. So,
All right. Was there anything else that stood out to you or any quotes that you would like to share?
I have one thing that stood out and then one quote. So this is a general statement about how I feel about stories as a whole. If you have the ability to pick the names of the characters in the thing that you're writing, don't have them be similar. Like, why is Carmen writing a book about Claudia for her boss, Carlisle? Like, again, is this a problem? No. But, like, if these are going to be your main characters, like, maybe we should have a more wide array of names. I'm all up for C names, you know. But, like, maybe we could have not had them all be C names. So, again, is that a nitpick? 100%. But that is how I feel about them. Then the quote I had.
yep.
This is on page. And sorry, Emma, did I just cut you off?
No, I was agreeing with you
Oh, okay.
out loud.
The quote I have, I'm going to kind of skim the paragraph because it's like the whole paragraph, but it's from the end of page 229. It says, over time, even after today, Carmen would slowly learn one ever-present and stinging truth about life, that it wasn't a series of epic widescreen moments, seismic battles like the Avengers Kree Skrull War, or the various crises on Earth 1 or 2. No, life was a series of hasty skirmishes, little things that chipped at you, that nudged and poked and prodded, little insults, little offenses, little suspicions. And then the big moments, the culmination of major essential stories you'd crafted in your own mind, didn't resolve through climactic battles on the George Washington Bridge, or getting struck by Thor's mystical hammer, Jonathan. Big thoughts would spin out of your mouth. Thank you. Only,
I'm laughing at your joke, Cameron.
only to disintegrate into particles of dust, the meaning of your message watered down by polite society. And I just really liked that idea, because I mean, I do think that that's like that one, that is the quote that like really stuck with me. It's like one of those things I was really thinking about. Like, I think a lot of times in life we have these expectations of all of these big major moments, and like while we have those, both good and bad, like the majority of who we are, how we got to where we are, is these little things, like these little pushes, these little nudges, and that's kind of how we've like wrapped up where and become who we are.
Yeah. I didn't have much in the way of quotes, but I like that one that you picked out, Cameron. Jonathan, especially.
Yes, I had to get that. Did I like plan that like 20 minutes ago when I went and found that quote again? Yes.
Yes.
I was ready for that. And I was like, well, I can sneak this in, make Paul Rudd proud.
Yeah.
It took me a second. I was like, was there a Jonathan in the book? I was like, oh, right, that Jonathan.
That Jonathan.
All right. Would you read more by Alex Segura?
think so. I think I'd give him another chance.
Yeah, I'm interested in his Poe Dameron book,
Mm-hmm.
Free Fall. It looks like the first chapter is free, so I think I might go take a look at that, and then just kind of skimming his stuff after, like in anticipation for this. He has a series that was originally on Comixology called The Black Ghost that looks really cool. And you know me, I'm all about judging books by their covers. So that is how I live my life. And so, has a cool cover, I'm interested.
Yeah, I think I would be interested to check out some of his comics and see what his comic book writing is like.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I definitely want to check out some of his comics too.
All right. Final thoughts on Secret Identity?
Overall, a decent read. Probably won't stick in my mind for too long, but it's not a terrible book.
I feel like in 18 books, when we do our next 20 book club books ranked, I will have to go and look at this and be like, what was this one about? And like, oh yeah, I enjoyed that one. Like, I definitely feel like it like left a good taste in my mouth. It's just not something I'm going to dwell on.
Yeah, I think it was a perfectly okay book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a top book that I recommend, but I also wouldn't discourage you from reading it if you're interested. All right, and to wrap it up, if you were to write a comic book that is vaguely about your life, if you were a superhero, what super animal would you be?
Well, if I told you, you would steal my idea and publish it with your name on it, and then
And give Cameron none
yeah,
of the
and give
credit.
me none of the credit, so I cannot answer. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm all about the wombat. You know, they're half womb, half bat. Like, there's so many possibilities about what could happen. They poop in cubes. Like, I don't know. What's not to love?
If I could pull off some whale stuff, I would. Not sure how well that would work out, but drop a couple of whales from the sky on top of people.
I say there's like gotta be a killer whale hero already
I
that
mean,
has to exist.
in My Hero, there is.
Yes. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as always for me, I'm torn between a fox and an owl.
Yeah, what to say? Things that hoot and howl.
I feel like an owl superhero would be pretty cool though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree.
You could turn your head all the way around.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Or would you be like Spider-Man, where really your powers don't really have anything to do with the animal? It's just all like manufactured stuff, like, you know, kind of unclear.
I feel like that would be a mix of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Our next book club will be Spider-Man's Social Dilemma by Preeti Chibber on August 25th. A bit less time to read this one, but it is a middle grade novel, so also should not take you as long to read it anyways. It looks very cute and very Spider-Man.
I'm very excited. The last like thing that we read like this was Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, which was, I think, way more enjoyable than it had a right to be.
Yeah.
But for us as a bunch of adults reading this book, and so like I really enjoyed that one. Shout out to that book club. I'll try to raise hands so that I'll remember to put a tag here for Midnight at the Barclay Hotel.
I don't know if this actually helps you, Cameron, but I like participating.
Yes,
So
it does actually help. Yes.
good.
It gives me the odds of the camera picking it up is higher as I click through if there's more crazy
Yep.
stuff going. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I'm really excited for this, and I've heard good things about Spider-Man.
Yep. So have I. I've heard of him once or twice. Few people have recommended him.
And this book is also a new release just last month. So I'm very excited. All right. Thanks for joining us for book club and chatting about Secret Identity, where I second guessed throughout the entire hour how to pronounce identity and being way too hard on the T's 90% of the time.
You do what you got to do.
To be fair, I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I overthought it every time because usually it's just in a sentence and you just say it, but I'm like, secret identity. Every time. All right. We are First Geek 411. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come chat with us at our Discord server. Check out our Redbubble store. Shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on Twitch and find our videos over at YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at onegeek411.com. You can find me on Twitter at the Hoot and Howl or Instagram at Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES.
You can find me at I Am Not Prepared, where there's an I in the prepared.
You can find me as Humar Whittle.
Drink some water.
Read a book.